Written by Anonymous. My first incarnation. In my current reincarnation, I am Moshe, the son of Rivka. This is my 69th reincarnation since I have come to this earth. I was, and still am, on my journey towards my endless destiny. In my first incarnation, and my longest one, I was born on the 1st of Tishrei in the year 2400 according to the Hebrew calendar, 1360 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. And I left this world at the age of 939 years old on the 9th of Av in the year 3339, 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar, during the destruction of the first holy temple. I was the son of two Hebrew slaves, Rina and Amram. We were all part of the Hebrew slaves who were meant to serve the pharaohs at the time. I was born during the ruling of the last pharaoh in a dynasty that lasted over 1,000 years in Egypt. The pharaohs ruled all of Africa and a few other parts of the world for a very long time. I spent most of my life in the Holy Land, Israel, after leaving with all the Hebrews during the Exodus, also known as the period of the Grand Confusion. I am using the word Hebrews because we were not yet known as Jews. We only became Jews when we were given the Torah, immediately following the event on Mount Sinai when the Hebrews received the Torah. The term Yehudi, which means Jewish in Hebrew, came into being for the first time in the era of the kingdom of Yehuda in the year 3174 according to the Hebrew calendar, which is 586 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. I will elaborate further on this later on. It is important to note that we were all circumcised after birth. The pharaohs, who were also known as the sons of God, or pharaohs in the language of pharaohs, were born circumcised. They symbolized perfection in our eyes, and the pharaoh was a god in the eyes of the nation. The word pharaoh in the pharaonic language actually means the house of the divine. They came from the heavens. The pharaohs came to our world from another star or planet. They were sent here to control and change the earth and its inhabitants. The nation looked at them as the sons of God, also known as pharaohs. Over time, the males of the pharaonic race started having children with the human females of Earth, which is what caused the pharaonic race to lose their spiritual power and pure essence. Their offspring was weakened, and they lost their initial powers, their destiny, and their purpose. Due to the physically rooted and primal influences of the humans on Earth, the pharaohs, also known as the sons of God or pharaohs, lost the intimate connection with their inner soul, which resulted in the demise of their rule over Earth. Due to these inter-race interactions, shortly after the Exodus, or the Great Confusion, the ruling of the pharaohs was no more. They came here with incredible technological knowledge and information that gave them the power to rule and build all over the world. For example, the pyramids. The original pharaohs were aliens who had high energetic powers, physical, spiritual, and healing energies. They were also able to call upon and physically speak with animals and higher powers. Rulers such as the pharaoh and the high priest had the power and knowledge to move between different galaxies with either spaceships or through meditation and power of thought. this knowledge and power became diluted over time and was, for the most part, eventually lost. They operated their spaceships through the use of the energy from the sun, magnets, lasers, and the power of thought. Growing up. As I said earlier, I was the child of a Hebrew slave. At the age of 8 years old, the high priest, Jason in my current reincarnation, took me to the pharaoh's palace against my will to work under him in the holy temple of the palace, the house of the divine of the pharaohs. I grew up there and was trained to be the minor priest. Later in my life, after my marriage, I transitioned into the role of high priest in Israel. I will elaborate on this role later. The name of the high priest was Pharaoh. Pharaoh is God and Hotep is a priest. Pharaoh was the younger brother of the pharaoh, Vicky, in my current reincarnation. It truly amazes me that I remember a few words from that time, but I don't remember the language itself. I wonder what the reason for that is and who is responsible for that. My name changed from Menachem, my Hebrew name at the time, to Mano, or more accurately, Mano-Hotep, the minor priest. Mano-Hotep was raised in the royal palace under the high priest in the holy temple of the pharaohs. Mano-Hotep lived in the holy temple from the age of 8 years old to the age of 49 years old. During the time period of the Great Confusion, or the Exodus, in the year 2448, Mano-Hotep took advantage of the opportunity and united with his father, his wife Gama, Mina in my current reincarnation, and the Hebrews, and they fled to the Holy Land, Israel. My life as Mano-Hotep was good, interesting, and full, but I was lonely and sad at the time. I turned from being a Hebrew slave to a minor priest. Later on, my name changed in the Holy Land to Saria, the high priest. I became the high priest in the Holy Temple of Israel with a wide knowledge of the pharaonic era and the secrets and mysticism of the Pharaohs. The high priest, Pharaoh-Hotep, or Jason, was very fond of me, and contrary to customary tradition at the time, he turned me from a Hebrew slave to a student of his. Even more inconsistent with the customs, Pharaoh-Hotep trained me to become a priest. The priesthood provided me with an abundance of information and the supernatural powers that I acquired from the high priest, which helped me in my line of work till the day I died in the holy temple. The consecration process, or purification, to become a priest was called Barakah in ancient Egypt. The high priest, Pharaoh-Hotep, or Jason, was a special man with knowledge and power that was supernatural. He was an expert and very knowledgeable about the secrets and mysticism of the pyramids, which was knowledge that could only come from very high places. He possessed this knowledge because he was a pure Pharaoh soul. He knew the secrets of creation and the secrets of the divine self of each individual. He was very proficient and had a very wide knowledge in technology. He was able to see right through people, X-ray vision, energetically and physically. He liked young children for amusement, and especially little boys, something that was accepted at that time. He used me for his sexual needs, which damaged me internally and emotionally until the day I died. However, I still felt admiration, love, and closeness to him. He did not have children of his own. I, too, chose not to have children. Instead, through my spiritual work, I chose to serve myself and the general public by connecting to the Creator in any way that I could. I was busy doing spiritual work as a spiritual leader for my entire life. I am disappointed that the work I performed was related to religion as well. This was because the work I performed later on in my life was under the control of the new Jewish Hebrew leaders in the land of Israel. Getting back to my childhood, in my first incarnation, I was taken from my parents' home at the age of 8 years old. This caused me a lot of sadness and fears that I had to deal with for a very long time. I succeeded in overcoming them only after I reached the phase of consecration, or barakah. My father, Amram, Rabbi A.A. in my current reincarnation, who is the holy Rabbi Eliezer Alfrandi, did everything that he could to be near me. It amazes me that I finally have permission to write his name in full. I was his only son. He hid his identity as a Hebrew slave and advanced into the pharaoh's palace in a very short period of time. He became very close to the pharaoh. He gained his trust and became his chief assistant. This provided him and my mother with the ability to be closer to me. My father changed his name from Amram to Amma, and my mother changed her name from Rina to Rona, Rachel, in my current reincarnation. They changed their names in order to hide their true identities as Hebrews. My connection with my mother was never very special nor strong. She died when she was 40 years old, relatively young for those times. From what I can remember, she died, from what I understood, to be sadness. My father died when he was 180 years old. He was born on the 10th of Tishrei in the year 2375 and died on the 5th of Adar in the year 2555, according to the Hebrew calendar. 1385 BC to 1205 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar. However, being an unusual being or entity with secret supernatural powers, he in fact never died. Amram. My father, my guide, and my rabbi, Rabbi A.A., Eliezer Alfrandi in my current reincarnation, came to this world in his first incarnation as the third son of Adam and Eve. His name was Shet. He was born on the 10th of Tishrei in the year 130, 3630 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, and lived 912 years. He lived several parallel lives as well. Overall, he lived 1,010 reincarnations until January 28th, 2014, the 27th of Shvat, in the year 5774, according to the Hebrew calendar. On that day, he did not reincarnate. Instead, he moved towards his final destiny, and he is currently in the pyramid star. My father, my teacher, and my rabbi was born and reborn, but never died. He simply lived parallel lives and moved between different reincarnations. For example, the reincarnation of Shet of 912 years, the reincarnation of Amram of 180 years, the reincarnation as Rabbi A.A. of 424 years. Some of his reincarnations are somewhat documented in the stories of the Old Testament. He experienced 1,010 reincarnations in 5,644 years, with parallel lives, sometimes experiencing 10 different reincarnations simultaneously. Rabbi AA's last reincarnation was here on earth, which started on the 18th of Tammuz in the year 5350 according to the Hebrew calendar, 1590 according to the Gregorian calendar. He was born in a little village in Iraq, not far from Baghdad, which was called Canif at the time. The holy rabbi left to the pyramid star at the age of 424 years old on January 28th, 2014, according to the Gregorian calendar. He left from the same field in New Jersey that he and I used to fly in and out using different UFOs and their occupants during our work together. He spoke 8 languages fluently. He could also speak with animals and aliens. He knew Sfat Haruach, which is translated from Hebrew as the language of the spirit world. He also knew Aramaic. The fact that Rabbi AA had the knowledge of these languages only offers a mere glimpse at the true power and consciousness that Rabbi AA possessed. Looking back at it, I realized that he was the architect of my life story, and he was also the architect of the history of the Jewish people and probably other nations as well. He is a special soul who was chosen carefully for divine work. He was present in all 69 of my reincarnations, even when I reincarnated as an animal, an alligator, and not a human being. For those who are wondering, yes, I have been part of the reptilian family before. No, I am not part of the reptilian family now. No, I do not have the ability to shapeshift. And yes, I have seen, experienced, and worked with people who have the ability to shapeshift. Ever since my last meeting with Rabbi AA, something happened that brought me to a new level of consciousness. This new level of consciousness and awareness has given me different understandings and insights that help me reflect on my past, including reincarnations that sharpen my memory and cause me to remember different reincarnations in more detail. For example, in one of my reincarnations, I was an eagle ruled by a shamanic Indian in North America. The shamanic Indian is present-day Orly in my current reincarnation. All my other friends, acquaintances, and loved ones from the year 2448, according to the Hebrew calendar, and 1312 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, were also part of that reincarnation in the form of different animals, such as a snake, Tina, bear, Vicky, hawk, Miriam, black and white wildcat, Tova, horse, Jason, wolf, Rami, female wolf, Shula, buffalo, Rachel, black and white dog, Abraham, and more. All the animals were controlled by the Indian shaman who used animals and plants for treatments and healing. A significant part of the treatment was performed with the use of psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin, for different healing purposes. The shaman's use of psilocybin on humans and animals gave him the spiritual power to control both humans and animals. In order to strengthen himself and his power over man, animal, and beast, he made sure that the psilocybin would be part of their daily diet in very small quantities. He would administer higher quantities of psilocybin when they were sick in order to heal them and even save their lives. The Indian shaman was known as Ram from Métis tribe, who had been wandering around the Canadian and US border for centuries. Ram was a strong, tough, high-blooded, bloodthirsty man with no compassion for those around him. He was also the chief shaman of his tribe and the ruler of the tribe. He ruled his tribe and animals with a strong and powerful hand. It would be interesting to understand why this reincarnation comes back to me again and again. The pharaohs dynasty. Contrary to common knowledge and belief, the Hebrews of ancient Egypt did not live a life of suffering and did not perform forced labor the way it is described. They were more like servants than slaves, and they lived their lives as second-class or even third-class citizens. They did not have rights like the Egyptians, and they did not get paid for their work. They only received food, clothing, and shelter. They did not own any assets. Everything was given to them by the Egyptians, more accurately, the pharaoh. The last pharaoh, the one who ruled during my first incarnation, or Vicky in my current reincarnation, was relatively cruel and harder on the people than the ones before him, despite being an entity with higher powers, just like all of the other pharaohs before him. Although he was not a pure pharaoh, he was still considered a god to the nation. His wife was Farah, or Tova, in my current reincarnation. Farah died at a relatively young age. She was a pure pharaoh who went through the Baraka process at a young age and became a high priestess before she married the pharaoh, Vicky, in my current reincarnation. It is not clear to me why she died at such a young age. It was most definitely not typical for an offspring of pharaoh to die at such a young age. Even more interestingly is how the pharaoh or Pharaoh didn't succeed in healing her, if indeed she was sick, with the magical staff that they had in their possession. I know many souls were helped and saved from death with the magical staff. I suppose she reached her destiny in this reincarnation. Roka, Tina in my current reincarnation, who was Farah's daughter, went through the Baraka process in the holy temple in the pharaoh's palace under the supervision of Pharaoh, who was the high priest, which is customary of every pharaoh child from the offspring of Pharaoh. Mano and Roka built a very close relationship as young children, as they were both students of the priesthood. They spent a lot of time together, worked together, and learned together. Roka loved and was loved by Mano since she was a child. Their love was destroyed because she chose to marry her father, which was very accepted at the time, due to her mother's death, because she, like the pharaoh, was from the offspring of Pharaoh. From the start, the love between Mano and Roka never stood a chance to come to fruition, since Mano was originally a Hebrew servant, whereas Roka was from the Pharaoh dynasty. Roka had to pass the Baraka process in order to be worthy to marry her father, Pharaoh, Vicky in my current reincarnation, which is a process that took many years. At the age of 18 years old, Roka married her father, Pharaoh. In the wedding ceremony, in which Mano was present along with the rest of the priests, Roka received the title of the Queen of the Pharaohs, as well as the title of the High Priestess, who possessed immense power and knowledge. Roka had a personal assistant since she was born, who was named Mer, or Miriam, my wife in my current reincarnation. Mer was a short, old, fat and mentally limited woman. Mer was very obsessive over Roka. Mer felt as though she was more than just a servant or a mother to Roka. According to my memory, Mer was a simple Egyptian woman who never married nor brought children to the world. Roka had a daughter named Gama, or Mina in my current reincarnation, who was also sent to go through the Baraka process since she was a daughter of the pharaoh. She went through the Baraka process in the holy temple of the pharaoh's palace under the supervision of Pharaoh. Mano was a teacher to Gama as well. Mano and Gama fell in love. In the year 2448, they took advantage of the period of the Great Confusion, or Exodus, and fled with the Hebrews to the land of Israel. In the year 2449, according to the Hebrew calendar, Mano and Gama got married in the desert on the way to the Holy Land when Mano was 50 and Gama was 17. Their wedding was on the 1st of Tishrei, which was also Mano's birthday. They chose not to have children and instead dedicated their lives to their spiritual work. They both lived very long and full lives and died together in the evil fires of the destruction of the first holy temple, their home in Jerusalem before the Babylonian exile on the 9th of Av in the year 3339 according to the Hebrew calendar and 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. Mano was 939 years old and Gama was 906 years old. Their bodies were never buried. They both served as high priests until the day they died. Gama was the head priestess, deputy of the high priest Saria, which was Mano's new name or title in Israel, in secrecy, because it was not accepted at the time for a woman, especially a gentile, to hold such a position of power. Gama was an Egyptian woman of the pharaohs from the offspring of Pharaoh. She never converted her destiny or her essence into Judaism, but she was part of the new Jewish nation and highly respected by all. It is important to note that although Mano and Gama loved and married each other, their connection and relationship would have never been accepted by the pharaoh if they would have stayed in Egypt because of Mano's past of being a Hebrew slave and Gama being the granddaughter of the pharaoh. As priests, Mano and Gama attained the ability to experience and see unlimited strength of high powers, downfalls, wars and plagues. They earned the ability to see, work with, and accompany the most powerful people of the Jewish nation. They were also part of the Jewish nation's journey in fulfilling its destiny all the way to its downfall on the 9th of Av in the year 3339 or 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. They hid religious objects and mystical or magical tools of different kinds under the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and that technology is still there today, waiting to be found and brought to the world's awareness. Among the different objects buried under the Holy Temple exists 3 original Torahs that were written by Moses and his assistants. I emphasize his assistants. When Mano and Gama fled from Egypt during the Exodus, they were able to take the magical staffs and bury them under the Holy Temple. The Torah on those days was learned as oral Torah and not the Torah that we know today. Mano and Gama served the nation for many years with the knowledge they acquired in Egypt as priests. They did so according to the laws of the Jewish religion. As high priests, Mano and Gama knew how to communicate with animals through speech and telepathy. Others from the royal palace, such as Pharaoh, Roka, and Pharaoh, knew how to do this as well. The last pharaoh's favorite animal was a lion named Chisholm, my dog in my current reincarnation. Chisholm was very close to Roca, Gama and Mano when they were kids in the pharaoh's palace. They went their separate ways when they left Egypt during the period of the Great Confusion, or Exodus. Chisholm was born in the year 2415 and died in the year 2450, according to the Hebrew calendar, 1345 BC to 1310 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar. After the Exodus. On the 15th of Nisan, in the year 2448, according to the Hebrew calendar, or 1312 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, Mano and Gama, along with the Hebrews, left Egypt and arrived to Mount Sinai, which is actually Mount Kharkoum in present day, on the 1st of Sivan. On the 6th of Sivan in the year 2448, the holiday of Shavuot, God came down to Mount Sinai and spoke the 10 Commandments. The following day, on the 7th of Sivan, Moses went up to the mountain for 40 days to get the 10 Commandments. Moses came down with the 10 Commandments, the tablets, on the 17th of Tammuz, 2448, and broke them out of anger due to the infamous golden calf story, the nation's sin. Moses went up to the mountain once again on the 18th of Tammuz for 40 days to ask forgiveness and atonement for the sins of the Hebrews. He came down on the 28th of Av. Moses went up onto the mountain for the 3rd time for another 40 days on the 29th of Av, after sunset, to get the 2nd set of the tablets, which is still preserved under the Dome of the Rock, or the Muslim mosque in Jerusalem. Moses came down from the mountain on the Day of Atonement, or Yom HaKippurim in Hebrew, according to the Hebrew calendar, on the 10th of Tishrei in the year 2449 at sunrise, according to the Hebrew calendar, 1311 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, for the last time. Although there are no codes in these writings, I am purposefully giving you the details of the dates since they will be important one of these days. Whoever knows the code for the book Rays of Light, as well as the Pyramid Code, will find these dates and details used quite often to continue their work and understanding. The end of the Pharaonic era came with the Exodus. As this era came to an end, the secrets of the universe, along with the different technologies, were lost. Among the sacred technologies that perished were magnets, lasers, and light energy, which were used to build the pyramids. From this point forward, Egypt declined and eventually became what it is today, a poor and primitive nation. My father, my guide, and my rabbi, Rabbi A.A., was the man who planned the Exodus. He was also the secret helper to Moses throughout the negotiations to release the Hebrews from slavery and into freedom. My father, until the day he died, was the right-hand man to Moses, along with the rest of the rulers of the military and the leaders who came after him. For me, he was a teacher, and with his help I became the high priest in Jerusalem, with neither myself nor my wife, who was not even a Hebrew, being part of the family of Aaron, the first high priest in Israel, or the Levi tribe, the priesthood. Aaron, the first high priest in Israel, was a half-brother to Moses. His mother became pregnant from an ancient pharaoh. Aaron was the offspring of pharaohs who were aliens. Aaron's family were the original priests, but due to inbreeding over the years, we cannot be sure that a high priest is really from the Aaron family or the Levi tribe. Over the past years, I have met and recognized people from my first incarnation. I don't always remember everyone all the time. For reasons unknown to me, the memory comes and goes. Eliezer and the high priest, Yoni Cohen, in my current reincarnation, replaced his father Aaron after his death. I, Saria, the son of Amram from the Menashe tribe, replaced him as the high priest upon his death. There were head priests who worked under me as my deputies. Eliezer's younger brother, Nadav, or Rami Levi in my current reincarnation, did not take his natural place as the next high priest after the death of his brother, Eliezer. This was even more odd since Eliezer, Yoni Cohen in my current reincarnation, did not have biological children of his own. Rather, he had adopted children that were never going to be next in line for the high priest position. Nadav became the high priest under my command, and he was responsible for looking after the holy temple. He didn't get the role as the high priest because my father at the time, Rabbi A.A., made sure that I acquired the role as the high priest. Today, some people may call this an act of deception and a political crime, but that is how things worked at the time. Amram felt that his son was more suited to be the high priest, especially since he had undergone the Baraka process and possessed supernatural powers along with the knowledge of the secrets of the universe that very few were lucky enough to receive. Nadav died a short time after, about 10 years, and was then replaced by Aaron's grandson, Pinchas. This goes to show that for hundreds of years the high priest was not from the Cohen family or from the Levi tribe as the rest of the high priests and Moses were. To top it off, Saria's wife, Gama, who was not only a gentil but a pharaonic alien from the Fatazul dynasty, served as a head priestess in secrecy. Long story short, the whole priesthood was a farce. This information will revolutionize many basic Jewish traditions as well as its belief system. There is nothing new under the sun. What was, will be, and what will be already was. Military men. The Secretary of Defense of the Pharaoh was a man who was very close and loyal to the Pharaoh. His name was Satis, Orly in my current reincarnation. He was a great warrior. Of note, the army symbol and the symbol of the pharaohs was the eagle. The eagle was ruled by the pharaohs like many other animals in the palace. The eagle symbol appeared on buildings, weapons, and also on combat helmets. In modern day, the eagle is the symbol of countries like the United States and Germany, and even Nazi Germany during the reign of Hitler. The eagle is found on many government buildings and various monuments in the world today. Satis was tall, noble, and handsome. He had several wives and a lot of children. One of his children was Maharaba, or Abraham in my current reincarnation. He was also a part of the high priests since childhood. Although he was from the Fatazul dynasty and I was a Hebrew slave, we became great friends. His father was also very fond of me, and we always found ourselves studying or working together. Eventually, we both completed the Baraka process and became minor priests under Fatah Hotep's supervision. We parted ways when I fled from Egypt with my wife, my father, and the rest of the Hebrews during the Exodus. Another person who I've known for many years in my current reincarnation is Shula, the daughter of Adam. Shula was Yehoshua, the son of Nun, in her first incarnation. Yehoshua's father was Nun, who's actually Adam, in my current reincarnation. Yehoshua was the son of my aunt, making him my first cousin. He was my age, and we grew up together as the children of Hebrew slaves until I was taken from my parents' home. Yehoshua reached very high places in the Hebrew Jewish ruling class as a Jewish military man, and was very close to Moses, Aaron the high priest, and also my father Amram, Rabbi A.A. Amram at the time controlled everything and everyone behind the scenes without anyone's knowledge or understanding. Today it is very amusing to think about it. I'm trying to figure out where Amram acquired his many talents and power back then. A question arises in my mind. Is it possible that Rabbi A.A., with all of his reincarnations and talents, was in fact an alien, fatter soul who lived among us for thousands of years in varying degrees? Moses. Potiphar, Pharaoh's eldest daughter, raised Moses, who also underwent the Baraka process under the supervision of Fatahotep. This is how Moses acquired his supernatural powers and spiritual talents to communicate with higher and supreme powers. Like the pharaohs of the royal palace, Moses had magical powers. I found Moses to be very tough and cruel, but a brilliant man with special leadership talent. Everyone was afraid of him, yet everyone respected him. He escorted approximately 3 million people out of Egypt to Israel in a journey that took 10 years, as opposed to the 40 years that is written in the Torah. For the record, they could do the same journey in less than half a year. The reason why Moses made the journey to Israel take much longer was to get rid of the old generation and their slave mentality, while simultaneously preparing the new generation for a new and powerful life with a different set of values as a free nation. In the first 49 days until they reached Mount Sinai, 1/3 of the people died, mainly due to the intense heat of the Sinai desert. The deceased consisted of primarily elderly people. Another significant number of people died during the following years due to an incomprehensible disease, and another 250,000 were ordered to be exterminated by Moses due to their betrayal in the supreme power. This extermination was due to the famous story known as the Golden Calf. The difference is that instead of the 24,000 people butchered, as is written in the Torah, Moses ordered the extermination of 250,000. Many more people were killed along the way. Many were also killed by various tribes that attacked them on the way to Israel. No one was buried on the way to the Holy Land other than Moses and Aaron, the high priest. Bodies were either left behind or, at most, they were burned. True Jewish burial began only after the Jews entered Israel. The Jews arrived in Israel without Moses. They were about 1.5 million people, including the calculation of the increase in population due to the reproduction within the 10-year period. Most of the people were young, as planned. Reflecting on my past. As I write my memories of my first reincarnation, I delve deeper into my soul, and many memories come to me from the past. Nevertheless, living over 900 years, there are many stories and memories. I don't remember a large portion of it, but what I do remember, for the most part, is unimportant to me. It does not feel like an issue that has any impact on my current path in life. I choose not to document countless stories which only interest me and are not significant at the moment. Getting into the small details takes me into deep places within myself that make it unnecessarily difficult for me. It also causes me to disconnect from my current self and my current environment. I also feel that it affects my current work and missions within TLS. I recently took a new mission upon myself that is vital to improving our current global situation. I cannot discuss this mission as it is currently active, very dangerous, and is a result of the malevolent forces that are operating our world. I try not to let my memories of the past interfere with my work, but they intrude daily. I do not and will not fail. Certainly not now, and not in the situations we are currently in today. In my opinion, extraordinary and significant events are about to happen that will affect the future for us all, and I would like to be on the positive side of the equation. Failure is not an option right now. Neither I nor my family can afford failure at the moment. I also feel that I became carried away and I may be revealing too much information, which is not what my superior, Rabbi AA, intended when he gave me the permission and great privilege to document these past 10 years. It is difficult for me to admit, but I regret that I did not listen to Rabbi AA at the time when he asked and insisted that I document and write everything. If I would have listened to his advice, today there would be at least 10, if not more, volumes of rays of light with an abundance of mysticism and insights that would one day serve the entire world. The Holy Temple. The first Holy Temple was built by King Solomon in the year 2929 according to the Hebrew calendar, or 831 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. The first Holy Temple was built in roughly 7 years and lasted for 410 years before it was robbed, burned and destroyed by the Babylonians in the year 3339 according to the Hebrew calendar, or 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar. Being that the construction of the temple was very costly, King Solomon financed its construction by imposing heavy taxes on the people. The temple was constructed from various materials such as local rocks and stones, trees such as cedar and cypress trees, and metals such as copper and primarily gold, which covered most of the internal structure. The inception of the idea to construct the Holy Temple came from King David. His initial intention was to create a house to serve God, but it turned to an ego-driven process that was also used to collect more taxes. Corruption, like today, was almost everywhere. King David was preoccupied with wars, political issues, economic issues, and personal problems, which prevented him from realizing his dream and building the first Holy Temple. King Solomon, King David's son, manifested the idea of the first Holy Temple, but it came at a heavy price to the people of the nation. The first Holy Temple was composed of 3 main parts. The main hall, or the welcoming hall, was the first part of the Holy Temple. The second part of the temple was the main temple, which contained the menorah and the main altar on which incense was burned and animals were sacrificed. There were various altars placed in different areas within the temple complex. The third part of the temple was known as the Holy of Holies, in which the Ark of the Covenant, along with the Kruvim, were both located. The Kruvim were made out of gold. I don't know why they are referred to as the Kruvim to this day. They were relatively small statues compared to the size of the Holy of Holies and the temple itself. The statues were half eagle and half human. One of the Kruvim was masculine, with a male human body, and the other was feminine, with a female human body. This attests to a kind of foreign work, or even a kind of idolatry within the temple itself, which is a complete contradiction to the basic beliefs of the Jewish people. The Holy of Holies, also known as Dvir or the Dvir, sat on what we know today as the foundation stone, or Even HaShetia, within the dome of the rock as we know it today. The foundation stone was used as a stand for the Dvir. Sacrifices were made and the incense was burned on the foundation stone, Even HaShetia. The foundation stone had, and still has, very strong energy and powers, and its geographical location is the energy center of our planet, as well as the energy center of the universe as a whole. The origin of the name Even HaShetia, the foundation stone, is based on the essence of the term, quote-unquote, founded, translated from Hebrew, which means that the origin of the creation of energy and creation itself was founded in this geographical location. The place itself is extremely energetically rich. In a straight line, deep underground, are the contents of the Holy of Holies, which are concealed there until this very day. The room in which these items are hidden, like the rest of the temple, was designed and built by King Solomon. A short time before the destruction of the first holy temple, King Hosea ordered to move, store, or hide all the holy content of the Holy of Holies in the hidden room. This was carried out by Mano and Gama with the intention that none of these holy items would fall into the hands of any gentil that would want to destroy the temple. Only the high priest was allowed to go inside the Holy of Holies once a year during the atonement, also known as Yom Kippur. However, the high priest and his assistants would go there every so often, not just on the Day of Atonement. King Solomon would spend time there in isolation for the purpose of spiritual elevation. He would use the Holy of Holies as a space to read and write. My knowledge and my memories regarding King Solomon and his father take me back to the past. It's a very strange feeling. I knew them and their heirs very well. As a high priest, I was their counselor, their doctor, and I dare to say, even their psychologist. David and Solomon, who were the founders of the first holy temple, were very strong and very smart, but very corrupt in their nature. They were greedy, powerful, and respected. Their personal lives were in utter chaos, and as a family of nobility, I would define them as a dysfunctional one. Within the family itself, there was incest, rape, and various murders. There were also wars over power and inheritance. There was betrayal between all family members of the family, from the grandparents to the grandchildren, along with all of their descendants. David and Solomon preserved their kingdoms by killing every possible regime. During most of his reign, David was preoccupied with different wars. In his honor, Solomon, his son, practiced peace and quiet and almost no war or resistance except for his first 5 years. King David lived about 70 years. He ruled the people with a strong hand. He conquered a lot of land and expanded his kingdom. David was very handsome. However, he was short and had red hair. He was known to be an impulsive, pleasant, smart, but very cruel and corrupt person. He had many women and mistresses and a large number of children and descendants. On the other hand, his youngest son, King Solomon, was crowned king at the age of 12 until his death at the age of 52. He was tall and handsome. He was a king who knew less wars, but also lived his life with absolute chaos. He was known as a wise man. He also had countless women and mistresses, and of course, countless children and descendants. In order to ensure his reign and dominance in the kingdom, even though he was the youngest child of King David, he was forced to murder his brother and some of his advisors and friends who supported the older children of King David. It is funny to me that the Jewish and Christian traditions are waiting for the Messiah to come from the family of King David. Jesus was already considered part of the King David family and was already a Messiah to the Christians. The Jews are still waiting for the same Messiah from the family of King David. It's all nonsense and fairy tales. May God help us if the Messiah indeed shall come from such a dysfunctional family. I hope that the days of the Messiah are near, and when he arrives, I pray and hope that he is purer, more whole, more loving, and more enlightened. It is important to me to inform the reader that King Solomon is Adam in my current reincarnation, and King David is Tova in my current reincarnation, who is the niece of Adam. Of course, some of their wives, mistresses, children, and grandchildren were souls that I know today as part of my soul family and a few close friends, but there is no need to go into detail at this time. Abraham and Sarah. Before proceeding to the insights of the Pyramid Code, I would like to share one story that is very close to my heart from my first incarnation. In the year 3000, according to the Hebrew calendar, or 760 BC, according to the Gregorian calendar, Saria the high priest from my first incarnation was 600 years old. It was not common to celebrate a birthday in those times. Most people did not even know when they were born, and if they did, they would hardly receive any acknowledgement regarding it. There were not too many people who reached such an old age. In my opinion, Saria and Gamma reached this age due to the Baraka process that they went through, along with their proficient knowledge of the secrets of creation. They used this knowledge in their personal lives and in their work as priests. They also lived a very clean vegan lifestyle, as did the rest of the pharaohs. If they would not have perished on the 9th of Av in the year 3339 according to the Hebrew calendar, or 421 BC according to the Gregorian calendar, in the destruction of the first holy temple, they would have most probably lived past 1,000 years old. the pharaohs and the high priests generally avoided sexual intercourse unless their intention was to reproduce. Physical love and mating occasionally occurred through normal intercourse as we know it today, but they mostly committed the act through meditation and telepathy with almost no physical contact except for holding hands and, in some cases, by touching legs. High priests would also mate by touching foreheads. Mating in this way preserved the essence of their bodies in a physical sense. It also preserved their internal energy, which was the secret of their vitality for their spiritual work. This is the reason why most of them would live such long lives compared to us today. Very few people truly knew how old Manu and Gama were, as they kept their age a secret. The people of the Jewish nation revered Gama and Saria as they were elders and priests. The people of the nation loved them, and vice versa. One day in Jerusalem, on the holiday of Shavuot, a young couple approached Saria. Their names were Abraham and Sarah. This is not connected to Abraham and Sarah from the Bible. Abraham was roughly 30 years old and Sarah was just under 25. They were privileged to meet with the high priest in private, which is not customary, because of the high priest's relationship with Sarah's father, who was a highly respected and well-connected man. The father requested help for his daughter. They came with the hope of receiving a blessing and help, since they have been married for 10 years and could not have children. Abraham asked for permission to marry a second wife, and together they requested help to get pregnant. Additional marriages for a man was something that was permitted in those days, so long as the wife does not show any resistance and the rabbi of the community approves. Sarah was very much resistant. She had power and influence because of her father's status in the community. Her husband, Abraham, insisted on a second wife, but did not oppose the blessing. Saria, the high priest, smiled to himself because he recognized the souls of Abraham and Sarah from their prior reincarnations. However, it was not proper or wise to mention that at the time. Abraham was Mer, my wife, in my current reincarnation, and Sarah was Roka, Tina, in my current reincarnation. The blessing that the couple received from the high priest helped tremendously, and in a short period of time, Sarah gave birth to twins, 2 daughters. One was named Ferchia, or Farah from the previous reincarnation, and Tova in my current reincarnation, and the second daughter was named Shir, Yehoshua, the son of Nun, from the previous reincarnation, Shula in my current reincarnation. Besides the blessing that they received from the high priest, they also had to go through a general, physical and mental, cleanse, which includes living a clean vegan lifestyle. By the age of approximately 35, Sarah was already a mother of 8. Ezekiel, Maharba from my previous reincarnation, and Abraham in my current reincarnation. Moses, Pharaoh from my previous reincarnation. Vicky in my current reincarnation. Hezekiah, Satis from my previous reincarnation. Orly in my current reincarnation. Chaya, Aaron, the high priest from the Fatasol dynasty in my previous reincarnation. Nadav, the head priest in my previous reincarnation. Rami Levi in my current reincarnation. Eliezer, the high priest from my previous reincarnation. Yoni Cohen in my current reincarnation. Sarah and Abraham lived a good life. If I am not mistaken, they lived until roughly the age of 38 years old. They have always been and still are a part of my soul family. The family friendship between Sarya, Gama and the young couple became even stronger over the years. This caused a little discomfort to Sarya and Gama because of the fact that they knew the truth behind the priesthood, the fact that they took the place of the high priests and that they are not from the Levi tribe or part of the offspring from Aaron, the high priests and his family. This was a small yet big lie in the eyes of Sarya and Gama at the time. There are many distortions and conflicts between the true story and the official historical story, which is something that personally makes me uncomfortable today. But I will elaborate on this later. I have to emphasize the fact that this incarnation was extremely long, very interesting and full of love, excitement, upheaval, and many bumps along the road. New rectifications, tikkun in Hebrew, that I went through in other reincarnations make no sense compared to this incarnation. However, I suppose that is the way of the world, especially the spirit world. With all the knowledge and experience, I always ask myself at the end of the day, why? How? When? What will happen in the near and distant future? The more I know, see and learn, the more I realize that I do not know or understand anything, and that we are just one drop in the entire ocean.